Excellencies on the dais, thank you for being here. It is my honor to welcome you to this panel on markets, mandates, mutual growth, reimagining trade, technology, and diplomacy. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from the distinguished ambassadors of 4 important Latin American countries: Argentina, Brazil, Cuba, Peru, 4 nations that share a common aspiration with India to create new pathways for growth grounded in trust, technology, and cooperation. Our discussion today will focus on 3 interconnected themes: economic partnerships, geopolitical linkages, and the role of global diplomacy in fostering mutual growth. As global markets realign, as sustainability and inclusivity shape national priorities, and as technology becomes a defining force in international relations, it is clear that trade and diplomacy can no longer be viewed in isolation. They are interconnected. In order to set the context for our discussion, I would first like to invite each of the excellencies to share their introductory remarks. We look forward to hearing their perspectives on the potential for growth in the economic and the geopolitical ties between India and their respective countries and the wider Latin American region. To keep our conversation structured, we'll proceed in alphabetical order, beginning with Argentina, then Brazil, Cuba, and finally Peru. I request each of the ambassadors to kindly share their remarks in about 3 to 4 minutes. So first I've come to Honorable Ambassador from Argentina. It's your choice, sir. Either from here or from the lectern. It's your choice. 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. And thanks again for the opportunity to be present here in Jaipur, in Rajasthan, to the Economic Times. Of course, I will be very short because then we have this discussion with the panel. I would like to just to mention Argentina and India share common values. They are 2 democracies, 2 countries that have been working together for many years, and especially in the last 6 years since the establishment of the strategic partnership between the 2 countries. This relationship has been increasing to the stage that today India is our 6th largest economic partner, with an economic relationship between the 2 countries of around $5 billion a year. We are extremely grateful to the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, because of his recent trip to Argentina. It was the first time in 57 years that a sitting Prime Minister of India visited our country. The last time was in 1968 when former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi made a visit to many capitals in the region. So we are very, very happy with this. Currently, Argentina is the main provider of soybean oil to India, the number 3 in terms of sunflower. But this agricultural cooperation can be expanded, of course. At the same time, Argentina is a country that has the possibility to provide energy security to India, not just food security, as it's a great country, it's almost as big as India. And we have, but with much less population, so we have the opportunity to provide energy since we have a huge reserve of gas, one among the largest in the world, in the south of Argentina. On mining, we are already working between India and Argentina with cooperation in terms of lithium especially. There are some companies, Indian companies working there in the state of Catamarca in the north of Argentina. And in other minerals, we can also expand this cooperation in gold, silver, copper. I would like to stop here because I think it's good for each ambassador to be able to deliver their message and then make a discussion. But I could talk much more, but I think it's prudent for me to stop here. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here this morning. Once again to the Economic Times and to my distinguished colleagues to be able to participate here this morning. Thank you very much.
Now I would request His Excellency Ambassador from Brazil to give his opening remarks.
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much for inviting Brazil, the Embassy of Brazil, for this very intriguing and very, I think, thought-provoking discussion we're going to have this afternoon here. But of course, it's a true pleasure to be back for the 5th time to this gorgeous city immersed, I think, in beauty and in ancient civilization. So, and thanking also Economic Times for choosing a theme which is really key to our discussions on international economic relations these days: trade, technology, and diplomacy. So, you reserve also my observations more in depth for our discussions, but let me just point out that the state visit of Honorable Prime Minister Modi to Brazil last month, I think, showcased a strong political commitment to our strategic partnership. President Lula and Prime Minister Modi had long and substantial meetings around a solid and growing agenda. And the main takeaway from these talks is that Brazil and India mean business. Let me just point out that Brazil and India have been already deepening their strategic partnerships in areas that will define our common future, such as energy, defense, food security, health, and digitization. And let me just recall one figure. In the last 2 years, Brazil and India exchanged more than 120 business missions, often led by high-level government officials. So, and concrete results are starting to appear in terms of trade, in terms of investment and technology, but I will leave this for later. And just to connect with our discussion here this afternoon, I think part of the process of deepening our relations, economic relations between Brazil and India, Rajasthan is becoming a key partner. It's remarkable history of recent growth, 17%, if I'm not mistaken, in the last year. And Rajasthan being a powerful engine of progress, we are charting in the embassy some concrete areas where we can engage more in a tangible, concrete cooperation and business with Rajasthan. I think, just let me point out, for example, energy, renewable energy, and agriculture, among other sectors. So I will stop now. I think that in these very complex geopolitical times we are going through, I think that Brazil and India have a very strong asset to count with, to rely on, which is mutual trust. So I think that we are stronger together if we deepen our bilateral economic relations. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by thanking the Economic Times for the invitation to participate in this important event, Rajasthan Business Summit 2025. In fact, it is my first visit to this beautiful state. I'm going to come back to Delhi today afternoon, but very soon I am planning an official visit to explore opportunity to enhance the bilateral relation between Cuba and the state of Rajasthan. Well, Cuba and India are celebrating 65th anniversary of our bilateral relations. We have had a very strong political relations from the time of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. India was the first country to recognize the Cuban Revolution in 1959. There are key moments in our historical relations, for example, the visit of Che Guevara to India in 1959 in June, also the meeting between Nehru and Fidel in New York in 1960, the 2 visits paid by Fidel to India in 1973 and 83, and from that time until now there has been a very high-level visit to each of the 2 countries. This year, 2025, there have been 2 important moments. The visit of the Deputy Prime Minister of Cuba on March this year. He had the opportunity to meet more than 5 ministers of India, and some important agreements were reached during this visit. And more recently, on July, during the BRICS summit that was held in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, there was a meeting between the Prime Minister of India, Modi ji, and the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel. And also, this meeting, in my opinion, has been a cornerstone for our bilateral relations, because some specific sectors were identified for both leaders in order to improve our bilateral economic and commercial and cooperation relations, such as, for example, biotechnology, pharmaceutical industry, energy, agriculture, ITC, among others. So I would like to once again thank you for this opportunity, and after that we can share some information regarding these sectors in which we are focused, how to enhance our economic relation between our two countries. Thank you so much.
Now I request His Excellency Ambassador of Peru for his opening comments.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank the Economic Times for inviting us to this important summit. Peru and India has strong connections because Peru is the oldest civilization in the Americas, 5,000 years old, almost at the same level that India with these Indus Valley civilizations. In fact, this is an ancient connection that strengthen and create a solid base for our economic and business ties today. Peru is especially a mining country and agribusiness country. We, for instance, we are one of the major global players in the mining sector globally. The country holds top rankings in mineral and export production, both regionally and globally. For instance, Peru is the second exporter of copper in the world, reinforcing its position as key supplier of this essential metal. It also leads the region in zinc, lead, tin production, silver and gold. That means this is a solid base as a complementary economy to India. It's a good and potential scope for increasing the trade and investment. And most importantly, right now Peru is negotiating a free trade agreement with India, and we are in the 8th round of negotiations, and I hope this year or at the beginning of next year we are going to finish and sign. That will be the first Latin American country with free trade agreement with India. That means a lot of advantage for both sides. We are going to reduce the custom duties. We are going to promote investment, including small and medium enterprises from India to Peru, as well as Peru could be a platform to invest and trade with other Latin American countries, since we are going to have almost zero custom duties in our economy. Thank you so much.
Before moving to the round of questions, I'd like to establish one point which was also spoken by several of the ambassadors. That is the Prime Minister Modi's recent visit to Latin America. This was the first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister in several decades. And it underscored the fact, the importance, geopolitical and economic importance that India is now awarding to Latin America. We see it not just as a distant geography, but as in a region that is vital for our growth and geopolitical sustainability. So I come to the ambassador of Argentina. Argentina was among the first countries to recognize India's independence. How do you view the evolution of India-Argentina relationship in the last 80 years? I think it's
Effectively, Argentina was among the first countries to recognize the independence of India in the late 40s, and we established an embassy in Delhi in 1949. The evolution of the relationship has to do with the evolution of India's growth in the world. India today is among the 5th largest economies. You're becoming economy number 4 in the world. And in that sense, it is more and more important for all the countries. In the case of Argentina, and I could say of Latin America in general, the economic complementarity between the economy of India and the economies of most of our countries is an objective issue. So that's why it is increasing so much the importance of India in Latin America and Latin America in India. In the case of Argentina, this has expanded to economic relationship between the two countries of around $5 billion, which I think is approximately the 10% of the total amount of the trade, of the economic relationship between the region and India. Of course, Brazil is the largest country, and but if you take all combined, I think we are around 50 billion. We should have more. We can have more. I am sure I can talk about Argentina, but also of other countries. We could provide even more to India, especially if India reduces a little some of the duties you have. No, that will be good for everyone, including and starting with the Indian consumers. I stop here because I don't want to talk to so long.
I come to the ambassador from Brazil. President Lula and Prime Minister Modi recently reaffirmed their shared ambition to boost bilateral trade from current, I think, 12.2 billion to 20 billion by 2030. From Brazil's side, what are the sectors that you believe hold the greatest untapped potential to achieve this ambition?
You mean export from our side?
Yes, yes. Right now, our bilateral trade is 12.2 billion.
Yeah. This year
This
will
is
be
trade,
larger.
trade,
So,
import
yeah.
and export both, I think.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. And we plan to boost it to 20 billion by 2030.
Yes.
So what are the sectors that we should focus on in order to achieve this end, to grow the trade by so many
Right.
percent?
Regarding our export side, I would say that the outlook is to increase some key commodities to India, which has to do with food security and with textile industry. I'm mentioning edible oil, pulses, and cotton. This has to do more at the commodity side, but not energy commodity. When it comes to energy commodity, it's energy, fossil fuel energy. There have been a number of high-level visits before. Honorable Prime Minister Modi visited Brazil last month in order to increase negotiations with the Brazilian state oil company Petrobras to increase the exports of crude oil to India. But you know, when you talk, if I may, just one small digression, when we talk about the prospects of Brazilian-Indian relations, economic relations, we have to focus on investment because the big news are there these days. The number of announcements of new investments, concrete investments of Indian big companies in Brazil and some big companies from Brazil to India are really impressive in the last 2 years. I'm talking about Embraer coming to India, just opened a big office in Aerocity in Delhi with prospects in the civil and defense areas. I'm talking about Embraco, which is one of the largest air conditioning compressors in the world, who just announced a 120 million investment in India, in Maharashtra, and they are poised to become the largest provider of air conditioning compressors in India, and so on and so forth. And you have Paquin for the big packages, containers, plastic containers. And then from India to Brazil, you have TCS expanding its presence, Hero MotoCorp, Royal Enfield, Bajaj, all of them opening or expanding their facilities, UPL, you name it. So when you talk about Brazilian-Indian relations, you have also to think about investment. And at the end of the day, for 3-4 year time, this will also materialize in trade, because this will increase the intra-industrial trade between the two countries. So we are also betting in renewable energy and ethanol. If really India really embarks on this ethanol option, which is not the sole option, but as one of the options for the automotive industry, you'll see more inter-industrial trade between our automotive industries, and so on and so forth. I just want, I don't mean to be here too long, but I could go on and on. Thank you.
So there is a lot of potential for growth, sir. Now I come to the ambassador from Cuba. You talked about, in your opening address, you talked about the long political ties that India and Cuba have had. Unfortunately, that has not translated into very deeper economic relationship. But now we are also trying to build some economic relationship and grow the bilateral trade between the two countries. We are looking for cooperation in the area of science, technology, health. So in your views, which are the sectors such as biotech energy, renewable energy, pharmaceuticals, which offer immediate scope for commercial partnerships between Indian companies and Cuban companies?
Well, I would like to focus on one specific sector and one example. Of course, there are many of them that I could refer to later on. But Cuba is a small country. It's geographically speaking in the Caribbean Sea. We have 110,000 square kilometers. It's a smaller country of all that are present here. Even it's 3 times smaller than Rajasthan. And we have 10 million population. But from the very beginning, we understood that Cuba doesn't have few strategic natural resources. So why we put a lot of attention in the human capital as a main resources in Cuba. And in all this year, we have open universities in all the country. In a population of 10 million, we have more than 1 million professionals. And I go to the biotechnology sector, because in the 80s, when only few developed countries started to invest in this sector, Cuba also started at that time to build a very strong and powerful biotechnology industry in Cuba. And we have reached I can say very innovative products, unique in the international market. And I would like to put one example. For example, we have an Everprot P. This is a vaccine used for the treatment of the diabetic foot ulcers. And for example, in India, according to the WHO, there are more than 60 million people that suffer this disease, 60 million. 50% of them are suffering of these diabetic foot ulcers. And 20% of them sometimes are on risk for amputation. And this vaccine created by Cuba has been avoided in more than 20 countries, the risk of amputation. And we are talking about thousands or hundreds of thousands of people every year. So it's for the welfare of these people, of their family, and the society as a whole. I think that this is an example. There are many. For example, I can refer also CIMA-VAC and CIMA-NAVEC is against to combat cancer, lung cancer, or head cancer, or neck cancer, or breast, and many others. So this is the kind of sector that we should explore in benefit for both countries. Of course, energy as well, because we are now in the period in the process of energy transition in our country. We are moving for a country that is quite dependent from import fuel to renewable energies. And India, according to the amazing results that you have reached in the last 10 years, you can be a great partner for Cuba in this process of energy transition.
Thank you, sir. I come to the ambassador of Peru. India is one of the largest consumers of gold and silver, and both are in abundance in Peru. And I think you are one of the largest significant suppliers to India traditionally. You recently highlighted that Peru's rich deposits in rare earth elements, such as neodymium, dysprosium, and their significance for India's electric vehicle, vein tech industries. You also mentioned the business delegations for Bengaluru, focusing on mining, IT, and pharmaceuticals are being planned. So how do you see this complementary business initiatives unfolding in practical terms through partnerships, investments, or joint R&D in sectors like EV or technology?
Yes. Thank you for your question. Yes, indeed, there is a complementarity between our resources in Peru and your industrial plants, for instance, on cars, in electrical vehicles. In fact, as I mentioned before, Peru's wealth of critical minerals like copper, lithium, and rare earth elements are plenty of deposits in Peru, and which are essential for a global energy transition and clean technologies. On the side of India, that is growing demand, India's expanding needs in the electric vehicle sector, renewable energy, and that's the reason why there are a complementarity here. Next month, we are going to organize a mining conclave that is quite of the top 5 in the world. And fortunately, 2 ministers of the central government are going to Peru. One, the Minister of Mines, and the other, the Minister of Heavy Industries, in order to start negotiating investment in Peru in these particular 3 sectors: copper, lithium, and rare earth elements. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer, sir. I would just like to point out the government of India has developed a very ambitious plan that our trade exports should grow to about $2 trillion by 2030. Currently, it's much less than that. But that cannot happen unless we have significant, not just mineral imports from Latin America, but also exports over there of IT and other services and other things that we are doing here. So Latin America and Indian association is very critical for us to grow the economy. Now I come to the Ambassador of Argentina. The Prime Minister Modi's visit to Argentina has scored critical in minerals, agriculture, and renewable energy as the pillars of our future cooperation. From your perspective, how can Argentina and India build resilient relationships in these areas, especially as the world transitions towards clean energy, food security becomes strategically imperative?
I will give you a generic answer because I think it's considering the time, it is the best to...
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. We can extend a bit because
okay.
We started late.
I think that the first thing we have to consider is the whole scenario. We are living in a world in which it is changing for the positive, and you have in this part of the world, you have main countries that have been developing their economies, and they have been increasing the level of life of their people. For example, in China, for example, in India, for example, in many East Asia countries. The total economy of the Asian economy explains more than 40% of the GDP of the world today. In this part of the world lives the 60% of the population of the world. In our region, we have only 5% of the population of the world. Even including a huge country as Brazil, even with Brazil, and the rest of the countries, we are only 5%. But in terms of natural resources, we are a very rich region, and we have an advantage that it has to be taken into account, which is the only region in the world that has no major geopolitical problems. We have other problems. We have some problems that we have to fix, but we don't have major geopolitical conflicts. As a difference of what happens, for example, in this part of the world in which you have a lot of nuclear powers, we don't have that type of problems. And with the world today is experiencing problems that they were supposed to be in some way, I won't say resolved, but at least limited. We have seen in the last 5 years at least 2 or 3 major disruptions: the pandemics, the Ukraine conflict, research in the Middle East conflict, and all these things and others that can occur are things that complicate the change, the provision of resources and other aspects. So I think that Latin America, that South America is a region that it has to be focused as a provider of food security, of energy security, of mining security, let's say. And I think we are all together in that sense. In the case of Argentina, and regarding the visit of the Prime Minister Modi with the President Milei in early July, before going to Brazil in the same trip, there were discussions about that, and I think the best is yet to come for our bilateral relations, and I'm sure for many of the others relations, because there is, I will insist, an economic complementarity between the two countries, and we are working very good in terms of agriculture. We could be more, even more, if we have this possibility of the reduction of some duties. And in terms of mining, we are working very good in lithium. And there are many other things. Even Argentina, for example, cooperated with India in terms of nuclear facility. We built a nuclear facility here in Mumbai some years ago. But many, many other examples. I will stop here once again. I used to be a professor, and I can talk endlessly. Thank you.
I come to the Ambassador of Brazil. So the recent tech pact between India and Brazil envisions cooperation across digital public infrastructure, AI, quantum technologies. The recent tech pact that Prime Minister Modi and President Lula had, this was between envisions cooperation across digital public infrastructure and quantum technologies, and even in adoption of India's UPI payment system. So how is this cooperation being operationalized? Through cross-border innovation hubs, joint R&D, or regulatory alignment, or all of them? And what are the most promising pilot projects that are being launched till date?
Well, I think the visit of Honorable Prime Minister Modi to Brazil focused on 5 areas. I would just single out some of them. The areas were agriculture, defense, energy, health, meaning pharmaceuticals, basically, and DPIs. So where we have things already going on the ground, things happening on the ground, I would say energy, doubtlessly energy, because of Brazil can provide technology to deep sea oil drilling in India, which is now one of the promises of reducing your dependency on fossil fuels in this country. I think this is a key point. For Brazil, from India to Brazil, is pharmaceuticals. India, of course, is the pharmacy of the world. We are a major destination of your pharmaceutical exports. So we have this week a big delegation from Brazil to IFEX, where we are going to discuss how to facilitate more exports of pharmaceuticals, Indian pharmaceuticals to Brazil, and also in technology transfer in some areas where Brazil thinks it needs to be self-sufficient in terms of medicines, because Brazil has a constitutionally mandated universal health care. So Brazil is one of the largest medicine procurers in the world, the Brazilian government. So this is the second one. And DPIs, you mentioned DPIs. We have been receiving a number of missions from Brazil trying to reproduce in Brazil this very successful digital government structure you have developed, which integrates not only public services to the citizen, but also private business, and also integrates the union level, the state level, and the municipal level. And this is very important for Brazil to seek an example of a democracy doing this, because when it comes to articulating a digital government, you need also a legal basis, and we need the legal basis the legal framework of a democracy, not non-democratic countries, because it wouldn't work in Brazil. Simple as that. UPI is not the best example of cooperation, because Brazil has also developed its own UPI, which is called PIX, which has been now challenged by major credit cards in the world. They're not so happy because they are losing lots of money, to be honest, because of the PIX, which is now more than 56% of all daily transactions taking place in Brazil. So this is less UPI specifically, but more digital government. Thank you.
Brazil is one of the largest, it's the largest, not just in terms of size, but also in the economy in the Latin American region.
Yes.
So with the trade with Brazil, it's almost very critical for us. Now, I'll come to, with Brazil, we also have the BRICS cooperation. But we can also talk about that in some other future conclave, because this one is focused only on the economic side. Yes, next year maybe. I'll come to the ambassador from Cuba. Earlier this year, India and Cuba decided to deepen their cooperation in biotechnology and biomanufacturing, especially in vaccine development and medical research. With India was also invited into Bio Habana in 2026, Bio Habana 2026. Could you share how two nations are operationalizing the scientific collaboration, and what concrete R&D and public initiatives are underway?
Yes, something that you have mentioned is how the embassies, the ambassadors, our team staff of our embassies could support this path to enhance the bilateral relations between our countries. I think that something that we can do is how to reinforce the bilateral legal framework between our countries. For example, in the last 2 years, we have signed a memorandum of understanding in biotechnology, in health, in Ayush, medicine, and also the drugs regulatory bodies of both countries. Also, recently, we signed a memorandum recognizing the Indian pharmacopy. It is an important step because it will be easier to sell from the Indian companies to Cuba. We have the potential to buy in medicines and in medical equipment more than $100 million per year. So this is something that we can do in order to improve. Of course, we are also bringing new innovative ideas in order to reinforce or to improve the bilateral cooperation and economical and relations with India. For example, one of them is on transfer technology in biotechnology from Cuba to Indian companies. The second is to create some joint ventures in India or in Cuba as well. Cuba could be a hub in biotechnology for Central America and Latin America in general as well. Also, we approved recently a new law in order to allow for foreign companies to hand over the land in Cuba for 25 years and could be extended one period of 25 years more. And we have potential in food production, in sugarcane production as well, and also the possibility to establish in Cuba 100% foreign capital investments. So these are the things that we are going to, we are doing in order to promote the bilateral relations with India.
So you mentioned in your opening address as well that India and Peru are close to, after 8 rounds of negotiations, close to finalizing their FTA.
Yes.
I think it should be done by 2025, late 2025, or this year or next year, early next year.
Yes.
Could you walk us through the key sectors Peru envisions benefiting from this deal, and how this FTA could reshape the dynamics between the two countries?
Yes, indeed. Our idea is to finish the negotiation and to sign a free trade agreement at the end of this year, or perhaps early 2026. The sectors that will benefit should be agribusiness, minerals and energy, pharmaceuticals and services, including textiles, of course, increase of bilateral investment between both countries. And finally, the creation of a stable legal framework to foster investment and reduce non-tariff barriers. For instance, if we see agribusiness, we are going to have our Peruvian products like grapes, blueberries, avocados, quinoa, and coffee. In minerals, I already mentioned tariff advantage for export of copper, lithium, gold. In fact, our trade statistics with India is 6 billion every year. We are the third partnered trade from India. And between the products that we export to India, gold is the most important. Last year we export $4 billion only in gold. I know that Rajasthan and Jaipur is very important, that jewelry. I'm sure that in your jewelry you are going to have Peruvian gold. And of course, rare earth for the transition from the energy transition. It's need. We are going, everybody, copper, lithium, and rare minerals. Thank you.
In the areas of foreign policy and geopolitics as well, India is very close to Latin American countries. In the recent, I would like to mention that in the recent Operation Sindoor, many countries in Latin America, including Honorable Ambassador from Argentina, supported India's position in that. In Operation Sindoor, sir. Sindoor. You actually gave some interviews also supporting that, and I also talked to you about regarding that, and other ambassadors have also talked about and supported us on those issues. I think since we are running out of time, so I'd like to have some final comments and have the perspective of the companies in your countries, how they view the Indian market, and what kind of reforms can be done to enable more companies to Argentina start trading with India. Latin American countries should start trading with India, and Indian companies should also be able to export there, do their business there, create jobs over there. So I'll begin with the Argentine investor. Please tell us about the perspective of how the Argentine companies view India as a market and a partner.
India is the country that everyone in the world is looking to. India is the country that is growing so much, that is improving so much, that everyone is looking. Of course, Argentina is not the exception. And in that sense, the Argentine people, the Argentine government, the Argentine business people are looking to. I will tell you one thing. When I was asked where I would like to be ambassador to, I asked to come to India. In fact, I am the first political appointee ambassador to India, I think, since 1950, or at least since we have a career diplomatic organization in Argentina. Argentina at the same time, and that means that the Argentine government decided to pay more attention to this, because in my country, at least, when they appoint political ambassadors, that means that they are trying to have a special relationship with a determined country. Argentina at the same time has passed a law of protection and getting investments, local and foreign investments recently, and that gives the opportunity to a reduction of taxes and some benefits to those type of investments. And India is already investing in Argentina. I was telling you, for example, in lithium. And now there is going to be a visit of some companies next week that I think they go to Brazil first and then to Argentina. So we are happy that that could be expanded to other provinces or states, as you call here, and not only in Catamarca, but other provinces, mainly in the north of the country where there are mining resources. And we are sure that this will increase. From our side, the Argentine government is trying to deregulate as much as possible the economy, is trying to get the most, to provide the most friendly environment to investments, And we are convinced that we are in an economic reform in Argentina that tries to give more power to people, more power to businessmen, more, as much as free economy is possible, and as less regulation is necessary. That's the motto of this policy, which in some way is comparable to the ones you are applying here in the last 30 years that had made, I think, this country so successful. So we are very hopeful for this. Thank you.
Now I'll invite the ambassador from Brazil to tell us about how the Brazilian companies, they view the Indian market and what kind of challenges they face, and what kind of connections are being built among them so that Indian companies can do business over there and Brazilian companies can find easy ways of doing business here.
Thank you. I think just one sentence to connect with the way Ambassador and Professor Caucino framed the relations between the region and India. I think that we are providers of diversification, economic diversification in terms of partnership and economic resilience, because we are a peaceful part of the world that has energy, food, minerals to offer, and also technology in more than one area. So we think that we are part of the solution in terms of helping ourselves to, as global South countries, to go on and grow our down the path of economic growth. But now, just answering your question, today this is a conservative estimate. The stock of FDIs, Indian FDIs in Brazil, is reaching $7 billion. We use in the embassy a conservative estimate. You can see other estimates which would go up to 10, but we use 7 because I think we stay on the cautious side. And we are all the time seeking feedback from Indian companies. What are the challenges you find in going on, increasing your presence in Brazil? One example, this week you have the IFEX, I have already mentioned, exhibit fair here, and there is a very strong team of the Brazilian FDA, which we call Anvisa, which is one of the 4 or 5 best FDAs in the drug administrations in the world, and they came to discuss possible ways of expediting the process of approving Indian pharmaceuticals in Brazil. This is one thing. The other is related to energy, broadly. Instead of focusing on energy more broadly, Brazil has introduced its own so-called GST reform, akin to GST, not exactly the same, but akin to GST, and also has liberalized its energy internal market. So the first one clear benefits for Indian investors and also all the investors, that this GST reform will eliminate cascading taxation across production chains. So we are no longer going to export taxes, only products. This is one thing. This is going to be phased in until 2032. And the second thing, you have liberalized the energy market, meaning that business now have the access to acquire energy in a number of different utilities, big companies of energy providers in Brazil that compete with each other to supply to the business community. So everything will contribute to reduce production costs in Brazil.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Now I come to the ambassador of Cuba. Same question, sir. How do the Cuban companies view the Indian market, and what can be done to improve their penetration into India and Indian companies into Cuba?
Well, I would like to introduce very fast 2 issues, 2 items, beyond the opportunity for Cuba or the bilateral relation with India. I think that the potential to enhance the bilateral cooperation between India and Latin America are more than the figures that today shows. I think that Latin America offers to India a very stable region. Latin America is a region of peace. Also, we have a community of Latin American and Caribbean states. We can establish a partnership between India and CELAC. I think we should focus also as a region in these 2 points. Also, we as a Latin American, Caribbean countries could take advantage of this initiative that India has launched in benefit of the Global South. For example, we are talking about the ASA, the International Solar Alliance, also the CDRI, another in terms of the Coalition for Disaster and Resilient Infrastructure, and the last one is the Global Biofuel Alliance. So I think that in the process for energy transitions to achieve the green goals, we can also work together and to enhance our cooperation with these organizations.
Same question to you, sir. Ambassador from Peru. So, what kind of challenges do companies in your country face while trading with India, and what can be done to mitigate those challenges? And how can we ensure more exports to Peru?
Well, our experience in Peru is that through free trade agreement, you can improve trade, investment, and cooperation. This is why, for us, for Peru, it's so important to finalize the free trade agreement with India. I'm sure this will be put our relations in another level when it's going to implement this free trade agreement. Because as I mentioned before, trade, investment, cooperation will be absolutely increased in the following years. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. I think this should have been a more longer discussion, but your insights are very valuable. And trade today is not just about commodities, it's also about security, technology, and trust. And every new partnership represents a hedge against uncertainty and investment in shared resilience. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see how the growth comes.